I'm Paisley Blackwood, 28, and until last Christmas, I was paying over $2,800 monthly to support my older sister and her family. Then, during Christmas dinner, my sister looked me dead in the eyes and called me a pathetic leech who needed to get my own life. She told me to stop mooching off their family success. What I did next destroyed everything they thought they knew about their comfortable lifestyle. Before I share what happened next, you need to understand how we got here. Growing up in Sacramento, my sister Autumn was always the golden child. For years older than me, she was valedictorian, prom queen, full scholarship to UC Berkeley. I was the quiet one, decent grades but nothing spectacular. Our parents, both immigrants from Taiwan, poured all their hopes and resources into Autumn's success. When Autumn graduated with her business degree, she married her college boyfriend Marcus within 6 months. They had this picture-perfect life planned out. Corporate jobs, house in the suburbs, kids by 30. I was still finishing my accounting degree at community college, living at home, watching them build their dream life. The fairy tale lasted exactly 3 years. Autumn got pregnant with twins, quit her marketing job to be a stay-at-home mom, and Marcus's startup company went under spectacularly. Within 6 months, they went from dual income no kids to single income plus 2 babies and a mountain of debt. That's when I entered the picture. Fresh out of college with my CPA certification, I'd landed a solid position at a mid-sized accounting firm. The timing seemed providential. Just as their income disappeared, mine stabilized. What started as helping with groceries and babysitting became something much larger. Just until Marcus finds something stable, Autumn would say, bouncing crying babies while surrounded by unpaid bills. Just until we get back on our feet. But Marcus's job search became increasingly selective. He'd held a director-level position at the startup, and accepting anything less felt like failure to him. Meanwhile, Autumn couldn't return to work because childcare for twins cost more than her potential salary. They were trapped in a cycle of pride and practicality that my income somehow needed to solve. Within a year, I was covering their rent, $1,800 for their 3-bedroom apartment in a nice neighborhood. Their car payments, $650 for Marcus's truck and Autumn's SUV, both purchased during their flush period. Utilities averaging $300 monthly. Insurance premiums at $400. Groceries for a family of 4, another $600. Daycare, for the occasional times Autumn needed freedom, $300. Credit card minimums on their accumulated debt, $500. Phone plans, streaming services, internet, another $200. That's $4,850 monthly, more than 70% of my take-home pay. I moved back home with our parents to save on rent, telling myself it was temporary. Just until they stabilized. Just until Marcus found work. Just until the twins were older. Months became years. Marcus finally took a sales position paying half his previous salary, but by then their debt had mushroomed beyond his ability to manage. Autumn talked about returning to work, but always found reasons to delay. The twins needed her. Childcare was too expensive. She wanted to be present for their early development. What started as temporary assistance became permanent dependency. Every time I suggested they downsize the apartment or sell one of the cars, Autumn would get defensive. "We can't uproot the children," she'd say. "They need stability." When I mentioned that maybe Marcus should take whatever job was available rather than holding out for management positions, she'd snap back. "You don't understand how the corporate world works. Taking a step backward kills your career trajectory." Meanwhile, I was living like a college student at 28, sleeping in my childhood bedroom while my sister's family enjoyed a lifestyle my salary funded. I had no savings, minimal retirement contributions, and student loans that seemed to grow rather than shrink. My friends were buying condos, traveling, dating seriously. I was working overtime to afford my sister's life. The entitlement crept in gradually. When Marcus's car needed repairs, Autumn suggested I finance a newer model for him rather than deal with maintenance issues. When the twins needed new clothes, she'd send me links to expensive designer outfits. "They grow so fast," she'd justify. "Might as well get quality pieces." Last year, when I got promoted to senior accountant with a significant raise, I took everyone out to celebrate. Instead of gratitude, Autumn spent the dinner complaining about the restaurant's prices and questioning whether my raise was substantial enough to increase their monthly allowance. I excused myself to the bathroom and cried while she waited outside, apologizing but never challenging her behavior. For my 28th birthday, I planned a weekend trip to Napa with college friends. Autumn called the morning I was supposed to leave, panicking about a supposed emergency with the twins' daycare that required immediate payment. I canceled my trip, sent the money, and later learned from Marcus that there had been no emergency. Autumn had simply spent their grocery money on a new handbag and needed to cover the shortfall. As Christmas approached last year, I was drowning. My credit cards were maxed out from covering their expenses during Marcus's brief unemployment stint. My student loans were in forbearance because I couldn't afford payments. My car was making concerning noises that I couldn't afford to diagnose, let alone repair. Still, I threw myself into making Christmas perfect for the twins. I bought expensive gifts, paid for elaborate decorations, and covered the cost of the prime rib roast Autumn insisted on serving. I wanted to give them the magical Christmas I remembered from our childhood, before money became the defining factor in every family interaction. Christmas Eve felt hopeful. The twins, now 4 years old, were at that perfect age where they believed in magic, but could actually articulate their excitement. Autumn seemed relaxed for once. Marcus was home instead of working his weekend sales shifts, and our parents were visiting from their retirement community in Arizona. I spent Christmas morning wrapping last-minute gifts and helping in the kitchen. When the twins opened the expensive tablet I'd bought them to share, Autumn immediately started researching protective cases and educational apps. Purchases she'd expect me to fund. The assumption stung, but I stayed focused on the children's joy. Our extended family began arriving around noon. Uncle David and Aunt Janet, Autumn's godparents, who'd helped pay for her college. Our cousin Riley, with her new fiancé. Autumn's college roommate Madison and her family, who'd driven up from LA. The apartment filled with laughter and the chaos of multiple conversations. Dinner started beautifully around 2 p.m. 12 people crowded around their dining table and the card table I'd helped set up. The prime rib was perfect, the wine flowed freely, and everyone complimented the elaborate spread. Uncle David proposed a toast to family traditions, and everyone raised their glasses. Then Autumn cleared her throat. And to my amazing husband Marcus, she added, who works so hard to provide for our beautiful family. The toast felt pointed, deliberately excluding my contributions. But I smiled and raised my glass, used to being invisible in their narrative. The conversation meandered through safe topics, the twins' preschool achievements, Uncle David's retirement plans, Riley's upcoming wedding. Then Madison turned to me with genuine interest. Paisley, your mom mentioned you got a big promotion this year. That's so exciting. What's next for you? Are you thinking about buying a place? I smiled, genuinely excited to share. Actually, yes. I've been looking at condos in Midtown. With my raise, I might finally be able to afford something small. The table fell silent. I could feel Autumn's glare without looking at her. Buying a place? She repeated, her voice dangerously low. That's interesting timing. Marcus shifted uncomfortably. Our parents exchanged worried glances. What do you mean? I asked, though I suspected where this was heading. Autumn set down her wine glass deliberately. I mean, it's funny how you suddenly have money for a condo when we're barely scraping by over here. The accusation hung in the air like smoke. Madison looked confused. I'm sorry, I don't understand. What does Paisley's promotion have to do with your finances? Everything, Autumn replied, her voice rising. See, my dear sister here has been living rent-free with our parents for years while pretending to be some kind of financial martyr. Meanwhile, we're drowning in debt and struggling to make ends meet with 2 small children. My mouth went dry. Autumn, that's not. Not what? She interrupted. Not true? You live at home, Paisley. You have no real expenses. Meanwhile, Marcus works 60-hour weeks trying to support a family of 4, and we're constantly behind on everything. The revisionist history was breathtaking. I looked around the table, seeing confusion on every face. They had no idea I'd been funding this lifestyle. Uncle David cleared his throat uncomfortably. Maybe we should talk about something else. No, Autumn continued, clearly emboldened by wine and years of suppressed resentment. I'm tired of pretending everything's fine. Paisley, you're 28 years old, living with our parents, and apparently hoarding money for condos while your family struggles. Do you know how that looks? The injustice of her words left me speechless. Around the table, I saw varying degrees of surprise and discomfort. Madison's fiancé studied his plate intently. Riley looked like she wanted to disappear. Hoarding money? I finally managed. Yes, hoarding, Autumn snapped. Living like a teenager while building up some secret savings account. It's pathetic, honestly. Most people your age are contributing to their families, not taking from them. That's when she said it. The words that changed everything. You're nothing but a leech, Paisley. A pathetic leech who needs to get her own life instead of mooching off everyone else's success. The silence that followed was deafening. Someone's fork clinked against their plate. The twins, sensing tension, stopped chattering in their high chairs. My ears rang. My vision blurred. In that moment, I saw with perfect clarity what I'd been denying for years. They genuinely believed their own fantasy. In their narrative, I was the taker, the burden, the one who needed to contribute more. I stood quietly, placed my napkin beside my plate, and walked to the bedroom where I'd left my purse. Behind me, I heard Marcus's mortified whisper, "Autumn, what the hell?" and Uncle David's uncomfortable attempt to change the subject. In the bedroom, I sat on the bed where I'd helped the twins get ready that morning, where I'd wrapped their expensive gifts just hours earlier. Hot tears streamed down my face, but beneath the hurt, something else crystallized. Resolve. I'd spent 4 years sacrificing my future for people who saw me as a leech. For years enabling a fantasy that cast them as struggling heroes and me as the selfish younger sister. For years funding a lifestyle they'd convinced themselves they'd earned through Marcus's hard work and Autumn's sacrifices. The dinner continued without me. I heard forced laughter, strained conversation, the careful navigation around what had just happened. No one came to check on me. Not my parents, not Uncle David, not even Marcus. Around 4 p.m., the relatives began leaving. I heard subdued goodbyes, car doors closing, engines starting. The twins were put down for naps. Finally, blessed silence. That night, I didn't sleep. How could I? Autumn's words echoed endlessly. Pathetic leech, mooching off everyone else's success. By 3 a.m., I'd moved from devastation to determination. If I was such a burden, such a taker, then they'd get their wish. They could see how they managed without my mooching. When dawn broke on December 26th, I opened my laptop and began documenting everything. Every bank transfer, every bill payment, every expense I'd covered over the past 4 years. The numbers were staggering. Rent payments, $86,400. Car payments, $31,200. Utilities, $14,400. Insurance, $19,200. Groceries, $28,800. Childcare, $14,400. Credit card payments, $24,000. Miscellaneous expenses, $16,800. Total, $235,200. Nearly $250,000 in 4 years. Money that should have been building my future vanished into their lifestyle while they convinced themselves, and apparently everyone else, that I was the one taking advantage. I pulled up my own financial picture next. Despite my decent salary, I had less than $3,000 in savings. My retirement account was embarrassing. My student loans had actually grown due to deferred payments and accrued interest. At 28, I was financially behind every peer I knew, all because I'd been funding the comfortable lifestyle of 2 capable adults who somehow saw themselves as victims. My phone buzzed with a text from my best friend Zoe. "Hey, how was Christmas? Call me when you can." 20 minutes later, after hearing the whole story, Zoe didn't hesitate. "Pack your stuff. You're staying with me until you find a place." I'm serious, Paisley. What they did was unforgivable. I can't impose. You've been imposing on yourself for years, she interrupted. Let someone actually support you for once. After hanging up, I spent 2 hours at my bank, learning how to extract myself from various financial entanglements. The representatives looked increasingly concerned as I explained the situation. Miss Blackwood, you're saying you've been paying rent for an apartment you don't live in? One asked. And car payments for vehicles you don't drive? Yes, I admitted, embarrassment burning my cheeks. This is highly unusual, the advisor said gently. Have you considered that you might be in a financially abusive situation? The phrase hit me like cold water. Financially abusive. I'd never thought of it that way, but hearing it from a neutral third party made something click into place. That afternoon, while Autumn and Marcus were out with the twins, I began phase 1 of my extraction. I couldn't pack much. Most of my belongings were at my parents' house, but I gathered essential documents, medications, and a few changes of clothes. Then I sat down to create the most important document of my life, a comprehensive breakdown of every financial contribution I'd made, with supporting documentation and formal notice that all payments would cease effective immediately. The letter took 3 hours to write. I kept it factual, professional, devoid of emotional accusations. Effective December 28, 2024, I will no longer be making payments for the following accounts. Followed by a detailed list with account numbers and final payment dates. This decision follows careful consideration of my financial situation and future goals. I can no longer maintain the current arrangement. I have documented all payments made over the past 4 years, totaling $235,200. This documentation is attached for your records. My new contact information is provided below for emergency purposes only. I will not be discussing this decision or negotiating alternative arrangements. I ended with, I wish you all the best in managing your finances going forward. I believe this change will ultimately benefit everyone involved by creating more appropriate boundaries and self-sufficiency. I printed 3 copies, one for them, one for my records, and one for my parents, who would inevitably be drawn into the drama. At 6 p.m., while they were putting the twins to bed, I placed the letter prominently on their kitchen counter, weighted down with their latest utility bill, one I'd been scheduled to pay the next day. Then I walked out of the apartment I'd been financially responsible for but never allowed to call home. The drive to Zoe's felt surreal. 4 years of my life, dissolving in one afternoon. I turned off my phone, knowing the storm would begin soon, and focused on the road ahead. That night, curled up on Zoe's couch with her cat purring on my chest, I felt something I hadn't experienced in years. Peace. For the first time since college, I wasn't responsible for anyone else's survival. The anxiety that had become my constant companion, worrying about their bills, their problems, their constant needs, simply evaporated. Zoe opened a bottle of wine, and we talked until 2 a.m. about everything except my family. College memories, her new relationship, the book she was writing, my dreams of travel that had been indefinitely postponed. It felt like rediscovering a part of myself I'd forgotten existed. Around midnight, I finally turned my phone back on. 53 missed calls. 71 text messages. I scrolled through them with detached curiosity, watching the evolution from confusion to panic to rage. Autumn, 7:43 p.m. What is this letter supposed to mean? Marcus, 7:45 p.m. Paisley, call us immediately. There's obviously been some misunderstanding. Autumn, 8:12 p.m. This is insane. You can't just stop paying bills without warning. Marcus, 8:30 p.m. We need to talk about this like adults. Come back, so we can work something out. By 10 p.m., the tone had shifted. Autumn. Fine, throw your tantrum. But you're destroying your relationship with your niece and nephew over money. Hope it's worth it. Marcus. Your sister is having a breakdown. Whatever we did to upset you, this isn't the way to handle it. I turned the phone back off without responding and slept deeply for the first time in months. The consequences unfolded with mathematical precision. Day 3 brought the first wave of panic as streaming services shut off, Autumn's texts became increasingly frantic. Netflix isn't working. Did you forget to pay the bill? None of our accounts are working. What's happening? Paisley, this isn't funny anymore. The twins are asking about their shows. Day 7 brought the phone service reduction. I downgraded them to the cheapest plan available, eliminating unlimited data and international calling. Marcus's sales job relied heavily on his phone, making this cut particularly impactful. My phone service has been restricted, he texted from Autumn's phone. I can't do my job like this. Whatever point you're trying to make, you've made it. Day 10 brought the first late notice on the rent. This triggered a new level of desperation. Autumn. The landlord called. Says rent is late. There must be some mistake, because you always handle it by the first. Marcus. Paisley, this is affecting our children now. The landlord is threatening eviction proceedings. Please call us. Day 14 brought utility shutoff warnings. Electricity will be disconnected in 48 hours unless payment is received. Paisley, please, the twins can't live without heat. Each message chipped away at my resolve. These were my niece and nephew, innocent children caught in their parents' delusion. But I remembered my bank advisor's words about financial abuse, my therapist's guidance about enabling, and I held firm. The most difficult message came from my mother. Paisley, sweetheart, I don't understand what's happening. Autumn called crying about eviction notices. She says you've stopped helping them financially. Can you please explain? Your father and I are worried sick. I called my parents that evening, my first communication with family since Christmas. Mom, I need you to sit down. I have a lot to explain. For an hour, I walked them through the financial reality they'd been unaware of. My father, a retired engineer, asked increasingly pointed questions about the numbers. My mother gasped audibly when I revealed the total amount. $235,000, she whispered. In 4 years. We had no idea, Dad said, his voice strained. We thought you were just helping with groceries occasionally, maybe babysitting. That's what they wanted everyone to think, I replied. Including themselves, apparently. Mom started crying. Oh, honey, what have we done? We've been so proud of Autumn and Marcus for managing with the twins, for keeping their beautiful apartment. We had no idea you were sacrificing everything. What do you need from us? Dad asked immediately. Can we help you get back on your feet? Their support was overwhelming and validating. For the first time in years, someone was concerned about my welfare rather than what I could provide for others. 2 weeks into my financial withdrawal, extended family members began reaching out. Uncle David called first. Paisley, I owe you an apology. Autumn called asking for money for their rent, and when I asked questions, the truth came out. I had no idea you'd been supporting them all these years. Nobody did, I replied. That was part of the problem. What you did at Christmas, walking away instead of causing a scene, showed remarkable restraint. I would have exploded. Cousin Riley texted, just heard what really happened at Christmas dinner. Autumn completely twisted the situation to everyone there. I'm sorry I didn't speak up. You've been incredibly generous, and she was totally out of line. Madison, Autumn's college friend who'd witnessed the Christmas blow-up, sent a long message. I've been thinking about Christmas dinner nonstop. I had no idea about the financial arrangement when I asked about your condo plans. If I'd known Autumn was being supported while attacking you for wanting independence, I would have said something. That was completely unfair to you. Meanwhile, I focused on rebuilding my life. Within a week, I'd found a beautiful one-bedroom apartment in Midtown, exactly the kind of place I'd dreamed of. The rent was reasonable, the neighborhood was walkable, and most importantly, it would be entirely mine. Signing the lease felt like claiming my life back. The security deposit took a chunk of my meager savings, but I was spending money on my future for the first time in 4 years. Work became a sanctuary. Without the constant stress of managing another family's financial crisis, my performance improved dramatically. My supervisor noticed the change. Whatever's different in your personal life, keep it up. Your focus and creativity have been exceptional lately. I started therapy to untangle the codependency patterns I'd fallen into. My therapist helped me see how my family's dynamic had trained me to measure my worth through financial sacrifice. You weren't helping them, she explained. You were enabling a destructive pattern that prevented them from developing real solutions to their problems. Most surprisingly, I discovered how much money I actually had when it served only one person. Even after rent and my own expenses, I had surplus income each month. I opened a real emergency fund, increased my retirement contributions, and made aggressive payments on my student loans. 1 month after leaving, I celebrated by taking Zoe and 2 other friends to an expensive restaurant. As we toasted my new apartment and financial independence, my phone buzzed with a text from Marcus. Electricity was shut off today. Please help us. The twins are scared. I put my phone away without reading the full message and rejoined the celebration. Their crisis was no longer my emergency. Through careful family network monitoring, I learned how drastically their situation had changed. The electricity had indeed been shut off for 5 days before they managed to scrape together a payment plan. Marcus had been forced to take on weekend shifts and a second part-time job. Autumn had started selling her expensive wardrobe and jewelry on Facebook Marketplace. They'd borrowed money from Uncle David and Aunt Janet, creating new family tensions when repayment didn't happen as promised. They'd applied for assistance programs Autumn had previously considered beneath them. They'd started shopping at discount grocery stores and cooking at home instead of ordering delivery. Most significantly, they were forced to confront the gap between their lifestyle and their actual income for the first time in 4 years. 6 weeks after my departure, Autumn appeared at my new apartment. I'd given my address only to my parents and Zoe, so she must have gotten it from them. When I opened the door, I barely recognized her. She looked exhausted, her usually perfect appearance disheveled. Dark circles shadowed her eyes, and she'd clearly lost weight. Paisley, she said, her voice barely above a whisper. Please, can we talk? Against my better judgment, I let her in. She stood awkwardly in my living room, taking in the space I'd created for myself, modest but beautiful, organized and peaceful. Nice place, she said quietly. It's very you. We sat on opposite ends of my small couch, the distance between us feeling vast. I came to apologize, she began, tears already forming, and to beg you to reconsider. I waited, letting her fill the silence. Marcus lost his main job yesterday, the sales position. They said he was distracted, missing too many calls because of his restricted phone plan. We're 8 weeks behind on rent. The landlord filed eviction papers. She paused, wiping her nose with a tissue I handed her. We tried to get help from social services, but we make too much to qualify for most programs. At least, Marcus's income plus my part-time work is too much on paper. But with childcare costs and our debt payments. What about your parents? I asked. Autumn's in-laws lived comfortably in Nevada. They helped once. $500. But they think we're irresponsible. They don't understand how expensive everything is with kids. What about downsizing? Finding a cheaper place? Her face crumpled. We looked. Even smaller apartments want first month, last month, and deposits we don't have. Plus our credit is shot now from late payments. And moving costs, time off work for Marcus to apartment hunt. So, what are you asking me? Just temporary help. Just until Marcus finds something stable. Maybe help with the rent arrears so we don't get evicted, and then we'll figure everything else out. The familiar refrain. Just temporary. Just until. Just this once more. Autumn, how is this different from 4 years ago when you needed help, just until Marcus found something stable? It's completely different, she insisted. We know now how much you were doing. We'll pay you back. We'll make a plan. We're grateful now. You were grateful then too. Until gratitude became expectation, and expectation became entitlement. She stared at her hands, unable to argue. What happens if I help with the rent arrears and Marcus doesn't find a job immediately? What happens when the next crisis hits? We'll figure it out. How, specifically? Silence. Autumn, in 4 years, what concrete steps did you take to become financially independent? Did you pursue full-time work? Did you develop new skills? Did you reduce expenses? Did you create any plan that didn't involve my income? More silence. The answer is no, I continued gently. Because you didn't need to. My money made it unnecessary to face reality. But the children will be fine, I interrupted. You and Marcus are educated, capable adults. You'll find solutions when you have to. She tried a different approach. What about family? What about loyalty? What about it? Where was family loyalty when you called me a pathetic leech in front of everyone? Where was it when you rewrote history to make me the villain in your story? Her face reddened. I was drunk. I was stressed. I said horrible things, and I'm sorry. The alcohol didn't create those thoughts, Autumn. It just removed the filter that kept you from expressing them. We sat in uncomfortable silence for several minutes. So that's it? She finally asked. You're just done with us? I'm done with the old relationship dynamic, I clarified. I'm open to building something healthier eventually, but only with clear boundaries and mutual respect. What does that look like? I don't know yet, but it doesn't include me resuming financial support. She left looking defeated, unable to imagine a relationship not based on my money solving her problems. A week later, I received a call from my mother. They moved in with Marcus's parents in Nevada, she reported. Autumn called this morning. They're devastated about leaving California, but they couldn't make the rent even with both of them working multiple jobs. How are the twins handling it? According to Autumn, they're confused but adapting. Marcus's parents have a big backyard and a dog, so there are some positives. The relocation felt like the end of an era. For better or worse, the artificial lifestyle I'd funded was over. 3 months later, I received an unexpected letter forwarded from my old address. Dear Paisley, this is the hardest letter I've ever written. For months, I've been angry about our situation, blaming you for abandoning us when we needed help most. But living with Marcus's parents has forced me to confront some uncomfortable truths. His mother, Janet, doesn't coddle us the way everyone else has. When I complained about our circumstances, she asked blunt questions. Why hadn't I pursued full-time work? Why hadn't we downsized when Marcus lost his corporate job? Why did we expect others to maintain our lifestyle? She was particularly confused about my attitude toward you. Your sister supported you for 4 years, she said, and you called her a leech? What exactly did you contribute to deserve that support? The question shattered something in me. I'd spent so long focused on what we'd lost, what we deserved, what we needed, that I never seriously considered what we'd given in return. The answer was devastating. Nothing. We took your money, your time, your sacrifice, and not only failed to appreciate it but actually resented you for it. We convinced ourselves that your help came easily to you, that it wasn't really a sacrifice because you didn't have real responsibilities like we did. I realize now how cruel and delusional that was. Marcus has found steady work here, nothing glamorous but honest and reliable. I'm working part-time at the twins' new school. We're contributing to household expenses and slowly paying down our debt. For the first time in years, we're living within our actual means. It's harder than the life your money provided, but it's honest. More importantly, it's ours. I don't expect forgiveness or renewed financial support. I'm writing simply to acknowledge the truth. What you did wasn't abandonment. It was the natural consequence of our choices. What we did to you was inexcusable. If you're ever open to rebuilding our relationship, one based on mutual respect rather than financial dependence, I would welcome that opportunity. But I understand if that's not possible. I hope you're building the life you deserve. With love and regret, Autumn. The letter moved me deeply. After sharing it with my therapist, I decided to respond cautiously, suggesting a phone call rather than resumed contact. Our first conversation was awkward, but honest. Autumn sounded different, humbled, realistic, genuinely remorseful. We talked for an hour about her new life, my apartment, the lessons we'd both learned. The hardest part, she admitted, is realizing how much we stole from you. Not just money, but years of your life, opportunities, experiences. We can never give that back. No, I agreed. But you can make sure it never happens again. Over the following months, we established a cautious long-distance relationship. Phone calls every few weeks, careful navigation around old patterns, genuine interest in each other's lives rather than what one could provide the other. The relationship with Marcus remained more distant. He struggled to acknowledge his role in the financial abuse, often defaulting to justifications about providing for his family. But he respected the boundaries I set and never asked for money. Most surprisingly, my relationship with my parents improved dramatically. Freed from the anxiety of my financial situation, I could engage with them more authentically. They visited my apartment regularly, clearly proud of what I'd accomplished independently. "We should have protected you," Mom said during one visit. "We knew you were helping them, but we had no idea it was your entire life." "It wasn't your job to protect me," I replied. "I'm an adult. I made those choices. But we raised you to be generous, to put family first. We never taught you that there were limits to those values." Extended family relationships also evolved positively. Uncle David and Aunt Janet became regular sources of support and encouragement. Cousin Riley and I grew closer, bonding over our shared experience of family dysfunction. Madison, Autumn's former roommate, even reached out to apologize again and invite me to visit her in LA. "I've been thinking about that Christmas dinner constantly," she wrote. "Your grace under pressure was remarkable, and I'm sorry I didn't speak up for you." Financially, the transformation in my life was dramatic. Within 6 months of ending their support, I had a real emergency fund, growing retirement accounts, and a plan to eliminate my student loans within 3 years. More importantly, I experienced personal growth that money couldn't measure. Therapy helped me identify and dismantle codependent patterns, not just with family, but in friendships and romantic relationships. I learned to distinguish between generosity and enabling, between appropriate guilt and emotional manipulation. I began volunteering with a financial counseling program for young adults, using my hard-won knowledge to help others avoid similar traps. The work was healing, transforming my painful experience into something constructive. Perhaps most significantly, I developed confidence in my own judgment. After years of being told my concerns were selfish, my boundaries unreasonable, my needs secondary, I finally trusted my own perceptions. The first holiday season apart was challenging but liberating. I declined Autumn's tentative invitation to visit Nevada, choosing instead a ski trip with friends. We exchanged modest gifts by mail, significant progress from the previous year's disaster, but still maintaining necessary distance. Looking back now, I understand that what happened wasn't really about money. The financial entanglement was a symptom of deeper dysfunction, a family system built on martyrdom, guilt, and avoidance of reality. Breaking the financial ties forced everyone to confront patterns we'd all been avoiding. Autumn and Marcus had to develop real solutions to their problems. I had to learn that my worth wasn't measured by my willingness to sacrifice. My parents had to examine how their values had created an unsustainable dynamic. The lessons I've learned extend far beyond family relationships. I now understand that enabling destructive patterns, even with good intentions, helps no one in the long run. That healthy relationships require reciprocity and respect, not one-sided sacrifice. That sometimes the most loving thing we can do is allow natural consequences to occur. Am I sad about how things unfolded? Of course. I lost the idealized version of family I'd tried desperately to preserve through financial sacrifice. But I gained something more valuable, a life of authenticity, financial security, and relationships based on mutual respect rather than dependency. If you're in a similar situation, supporting family members who've become entitled to your assistance, sacrificing your future for people who refuse to change, please know that establishing boundaries isn't selfish. It's often the most loving choice for everyone involved, even when it doesn't feel that way. Your financial and emotional health matter. Your dreams and goals are valid. You don't owe anyone your entire life, no matter how much they need help or how guilty they make you feel about having boundaries. Sometimes the hardest choices lead to the most necessary healing. Sometimes walking away is the only way forward. And sometimes, if you're very lucky, that walking away eventually leads to walking back together on healthier terms. But even if it doesn't, even if the relationship never heals, even if they never acknowledge what happened, you're still worth protecting. Your future is still worth building. Your peace of mind is still worth fighting for. 2 years after that pivotal Christmas dinner, my life looks nothing like I ever imagined it would. I'm 30 now, living in a beautiful one-bedroom condo I was able to purchase thanks to the savings I accumulated once I stopped funding someone else's lifestyle. The down payment came from money that would have otherwise disappeared into Autumn and Marcus's endless financial black hole. My career has flourished in ways I never expected. Without the constant stress and distraction of managing another family's crisis, I've been able to focus entirely on my professional development. I earned my CPA certification, took on high-profile clients, and was recently promoted to senior manager at my firm. My boss has even mentioned partnership track possibilities, something that would have been impossible when 70% of my income was spoken for before I even received it. The condo is everything I dreamed of during those years of living in my childhood bedroom while paying for Autumn's 3-bedroom apartment. It's small but perfectly designed, with huge windows that flood the space with natural light, a kitchen island where I can actually cook for myself, and a balcony overlooking the city. Every piece of furniture, every decoration, every bill that arrives in my mailbox is mine and mine alone. I've developed new friendships through my volunteer work and professional networks, relationships based on shared interests and mutual respect rather than what I can provide financially. I've traveled to places that seemed impossible when my money disappeared before I could even consider discretionary spending. A photography tour through Iceland, a cooking class vacation in Tuscany, a hiking expedition in Peru. Most importantly, I've learned to trust my instincts about people and relationships. The financial abuse I experienced taught me to recognize manipulation tactics, boundary violations, and entitlement patterns. These skills have served me well in dating, friendships, and professional relationships. About 6 months ago, I started seeing someone, David, a colleague from a different department. He's kind, financially responsible, and has his own healthy relationship with his family. When I told him about my situation with Autumn, he was shocked but supportive. "You supported them for 4 years?" he asked, genuinely confused. "And they called you a leech?" That's completely backwards. Having someone validate my experience without having lived through it felt profoundly healing. David has met my parents, who adore him, and he's helped me navigate the continued complexity of family relationships with wisdom and perspective. Autumn and I now talk every few months. The conversations are cautious, but genuine. She's still in Nevada, working full-time now that the twins are in school. Marcus found a management position with a small company, not the corporate prestige he once held, but steady work that provides for their family without requiring anyone else's sacrifice. "We're actually happy," she told me during our last call, sounding surprised by the admission. "Not the life we planned, but honest. The kids love their grandparents, we're finally paying down debt, and Marcus and I aren't constantly fighting about money anymore." "How are you handling the lifestyle change?" I asked, genuinely curious. "It was brutal at first," she admitted. "Going from your subsidized lifestyle to reality was like hitting a wall. But now, I actually prefer it. There's no guilt, no complicated dynamics, no feeling like we owe anyone anything. What we have, we earned." The twins, now 6, barely remember their California life. They video call me occasionally, shy but sweet, showing me art projects and telling me about their school friends. I send birthday and Christmas gifts, modest ones that I choose freely rather than expensive items demanded through guilt and manipulation. Marcus remains more distant but civil. He acknowledges what happened was wrong but struggles with deeper accountability. "I was just trying to provide for my family," he said during one awkward conversation. I no longer feel obligated to educate him about the impact of his choices. That's work he needs to do himself if he ever chooses to. My parents have become some of my biggest supporters and advocates. They regularly tell people about my condo, my career success, my travels, pride that was impossible when my achievements were invisible behind my sister's needs. "We're so proud of who you've become," Mom said recently. "Not just professionally, but personally. You learned to value yourself, and that took tremendous courage." The extended family dynamics have settled into a new normal. Uncle David and Aunt Janet remain close allies. Cousin Riley and I text regularly, sharing everything from career updates to dating stories. Even Madison, Autumn's old friend, has become a genuine friend to me, visiting whenever she's in Sacramento and including me in her social media updates about life in LA. Last Christmas, I hosted my parents at my condo for the first time. We kept it simple, dinner for three, modest gifts, no pressure or expectations. Autumn called to wish us happy holidays, and I spoke to her briefly, but the day belonged to the people physically present rather than managing someone else's emotional needs from afar. The peace of that Christmas, cooking in my own kitchen, sitting around my own table, paying for celebration with money I'd earned and saved, felt like the completion of a journey I hadn't realized I was taking. The financial transformation in my life still amazes me. I now have 8 months of expenses in my emergency fund. My retirement accounts are robust and growing. I've paid off my student loans entirely, 2 years ahead of schedule. I'm even considering going back to school for my MBA, something that would have been impossible when my income was committed elsewhere. But the emotional transformation has been even more profound. I sleep peacefully, no longer waking at 3 a.m. worried about bills I couldn't afford or crises I couldn't solve. I make decisions based on my own values and goals rather than what others need from me. I've learned to say no without guilt and yes without resentment. The therapy I started during the crisis has continued, helping me understand not just what happened, but why I allowed it to happen for so long. I came from a family culture that equated love with sacrifice, that taught me my value lay in what I could provide rather than who I was as a person. You weren't just supporting them financially, my therapist explained. You were trying to purchase the family dynamic you wanted, one where you mattered, where you were appreciated, where your contributions were valued. But you can't buy genuine love and respect. That insight was painful but liberating. I'd been trying to earn something that should have been freely given, and in doing so, I'd actually made it impossible for healthy relationships to develop. The volunteer work I do now with financial abuse survivors has shown me how common my experience actually is. I counsel young adults who are supporting parents, siblings, friends, romantic partners, anyone who has learned to see their bank account as the solution to other people's problems. But they really need help. They always say the same words I use to justify my situation. Need and entitlement are different things, I tell them. Helping someone occasionally, when they're truly in crisis, is beautiful. Becoming someone's permanent financial solution while they make no effort to solve their own problems is enabling. The distinction seems obvious now, but felt impossible to see when I was living it. I've also learned that family relationships don't have to follow traditional scripts. I don't owe Autumn a close sisterly bond just because we share DNA. I don't owe my parents regular visits or constant updates just because they raised me. I don't owe anyone anything beyond basic respect and kindness. This might sound cold, but it's actually freed me to engage more authentically with my family. When I choose to call Autumn or visit my parents, it's because I want to, not because I feel obligated. The relationships that have survived this shift are stronger and more genuine than what came before. Some people might read this story and think I was too harsh, that families should forgive and sacrifice for each other unconditionally. But those people probably haven't experienced financial abuse or emotional manipulation disguised as family loyalty. Love doesn't require you to set yourself on fire to keep others warm. Loyalty doesn't mean accepting abuse, because it comes from relatives. Family can be wonderful, but it can also be toxic, and recognizing the difference is crucial for your well-being. If you're reading this and recognizing yourself in my story, please know that you deserve better. You deserve relationships where your worth isn't measured by your wallet. You deserve to build your own future instead of funding someone else's present. You deserve to be valued for who you are, not what you can provide. The choice to walk away from financial abuse is never easy, but it's often necessary. The guilt, fear, and uncertainty that come with setting boundaries are temporary. The peace, self-respect, and authentic relationships that can develop on the other side are permanent. Your life belongs to you. Your money belongs to you. Your future belongs to you. Don't let anyone convince you otherwise, no matter how much they claim to love you or need you. Sometimes the most radical act of self-love is simply refusing to be taken advantage of anymore. Sometimes the kindest thing you can do for people you care about is force them to solve their own problems. Sometimes walking away is the only way forward. And sometimes, if you're very fortunate, that journey leads you back to healthier connections with the people who truly matter. But even if it doesn't, you're still worth protecting. Your dreams are still valid. Your boundaries are still necessary. I'm living proof that life gets better when you choose yourself. That financial independence is about more than money. It's about freedom, dignity, and the chance to build something beautiful with your own hands. 2 years later, I can honestly say that devastating Christmas dinner was the best thing that ever happened to me. Autumn's cruel words shattered the illusion I'd been maintaining and forced me to face reality. Her demand that I get my own life finally gave me permission to actually do it. I hope my story helps someone else find that same permission. You don't need anyone's approval to protect yourself. You don't need anyone's understanding to set boundaries. You don't need anyone's forgiveness to choose your own well-being. You just need the courage to believe you're worth fighting for. Because you are.